So several, at
Several,
least.
quite a few, yeah.
Okay. When you were working on the homes, did you ever meet with Mr. Tellus out at those homes?
Yes.
And in those instances, what was the purpose of Mr. Tellus coming out there?
So yeah, he was very proactive, and we would meet at the home to assess what needs to be done to the home, whether it needs to be, fixed up, redone, all those sort of things, assess with the contractors. And then we would also meet, once it was done, we would meet, he would walk through, we would assess the value and sign the paperwork.
Okay, so you would have done that 20 to 30 times?
Yeah, many times.
Okay, and those would include a walkthrough where you're literally walking through the house?
Yes.
I want to direct your attention to September of 2022, early September. Around that time period, did you become aware that journalist Jeff German had been murdered?
Yes, I have.
Do you recall if you ever saw images released by the Las Vegas Metropolitan Police Department associated with that murder?
Yes.
And do you remember what they were, if they were still photos or videos?
Videos.
Videos?
Yeah.
And when you saw the videos, did they remind you of anybody?
Yes. Me and Zach, because we had followed all the stories that Jeff had written.
Sure.
So it was kind of like, oh my gosh, can you imagine if it was Rob that did that? And we kind of said it in jest, not really actually thinking he did it.
Sure.
And then we watched the video and we were like, it raised an eyebrow, but it was nothing that I would say, oh, you need to call the police on because, that's...
Not wanting to believe it.
Yeah, well, it's not even not wanting to believe it. You just don't want to assume somebody did that.
Sure.
And not be 100% sure.
Okay. Did there come a point in time when you and Zach, and I don't want to know what he said, but where you had a conversation about calling the police?
Yes, we did when he called me and he said, when they released a photograph of the car, he said, that's Rob's car. I've seen him in it at the water store. And I was like, okay. So that's when, he said, what should I do? What do we do? And I was like, well, if that's his car, you should consider calling somebody.
Okay. And is it your understanding that at that point he called the police?
Yes.
Okay. And at some point beyond that, do you recall being interviewed or being present during an interview with detectives?
Yes, they came to our office.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes.
Cross-examination?
Yes, thank you, Ms. Riffle.
Mm-hmm.
So Jeff German dies, and you and Mr. Schilling are talking about Mr. Tellus in jest. That was your testimony, correct?
Yes.
And then sometime later, there's a recognition of a car that's driven at times by Mr. Tellus, correct?
Correct.
And is that when this realization that maybe Mr. Tellus is somehow involved occurred for you?
Pardon me?
I said, is that when this realization that maybe Mr. Tellus is somehow involved? Is that when this came to you?
It was a consideration when we saw the video.
Okay.
And then
the video of what?
Of him walking.
I see.
And the height, the shoes.
The shoes now. Okay.
Yes.
But you had testified concerning this realization came to you when you saw the vehicle.
But the vehicle was the moment when we said, okay, that's confirmation enough. The video before was not confirmation enough to make a phone call.
So the video of him walking was not confirmation
No,
enough.
because I don't see his face.
I see.
So if I saw his face, then I could confirm that it was him. The car was the confirmation.
What type of car was that?
It was a maroon, very large suburban Denali type.
Okay. Obviously, you've been following this matter in the paper prior to your testimony today.
Correct.
Both you and Mr. Schilling, you've been following this case, haven't you?
We followed the case. I mean, I haven't really been paying that much attention to it recently, but we followed the case when it was happening, yeah.
Okay, well, it's still happening. You're aware of that.
Well, I'm aware it's still happening, but I haven't been paying that much attention to it recently, if I'm being honest.
Well, please.
Yeah.
You received a subpoena to come and testify, correct?
Correct.
And you received that subpoena when?
A week ago? Was it a week ago? It was a week ago.
I don't know, ma'am.
Yeah, I don't, it was a week and a half ago, 2 weeks ago.
And you just haven't really been paying attention
I've
with
been
this.
very busy, if we're being honest,
Oh, that's please, yes.
which is a good thing.
You know that the trial of Mr. Tellus was coming up, correct?
No, I didn't.
I see. And you didn't know when you got the subpoena that it was coming
Well,
up?
I mean, I knew there was a subpoena coming. I didn't think I was even going to have to show up, to be honest with you. So I didn't think my testimony was going to be that important to it. So I was not taking it super seriously.
In reference to these walkthroughs of these homes, Mr. Tellus was not present for most of those walkthroughs, fair to say?
Mr. Tellus wasn't present for our walkthroughs?
Correct.
No, he was present for our walkthroughs.
I see. That many times? You'd agree with me, you only came into contact with this gentleman, what, twice, maybe?
No, many times. We've seen each other many times. And he was always lovely with me.
He was always lovely with you.
Yeah.
He didn't have that good of a relationship with Mr. Schilling, did he?
There were times when they butt heads on price.
Correct.
But that's normal in our business.
In fact, Mr. Schilling would refer to Mr. Tellus as an asshole, correct?
No. Who said he's called him an asshole?
Just to be clear, though, while this thing was unfolding with Mr. Tellus, concerning Mr. German, you and Mr. Schilling were jesting about Mr. Tellus's involvement, correct?
We were assuming.
She said jesting, correct? You were joking about it.
Well, we were like, can you imagine if reading the stories that were out? Can you imagine if that was him? And then we're watching the video, and yeah. So
These stories that came out, they came out before
the murder.
Video, but they came out before the murder. Okay.
The story, we read all the stories with Roberta. We were very much in it because we worked with them, and yeah.
Thank you. I have no further questions.
Just briefly, Ms. Riffle, you said it was the sort of the gait and the size of the person that looked familiar to you?
Yeah, it was this. Yeah, it was this.
And by size, do you mean like kind of build?
Height and build, yes.
Okay. And so the sort of the frame of the whole
Right.
body?
Right.
And then the way the person was walking?
Right.
Okay. And was there an article of clothing that you were, that drew your attention to?
Because Zach is so, he has a tendency to notice everything. Like he noticed things on my outfit today. Like he, saw a string and he's like, we got to cut the string. He's very observant with everything. So he always recognized the shoes. No, but he's brought up the shoes to
Okay,
me.
hold
in
on
the
one
past.
sec, let the judge decide.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
Okay, so my question is, not what Zach said, but was there a particular article of clothing that you guys were focused on?
The shoes.
Okay, thank you.
I have no questions.
Okay, any other questions?